I've had a minor epiphany. I would like to share this with myself, for myself, and if it happens to benefit anyone, I'm genuinely and sincerely grateful. When I talk about respecting mood disorders, depression, anxiety, depersonalization, if you want to go into some of the more niche mood disorders, still very important and not terribly uncommon, bipolar, schizophrenia, manic depression, rapid cycling sort of thing. When I talk about respecting your mood disorder, I don't talk about like being proud per se and being like, man, I respect you, like you're a great guy. I'm not talking about the same form of respect in which we show, or we should try to always show, in relationships. I'm talking about respecting the power of a mood disorder and how that power then affects your actions. I recently disrespected my mood disorder, and truthfully it's something I've done since I first was diagnosed with severe clinical depression coupled with agitated, anxious tendencies, like anxiety. I forget what the specific diagnosis was, but I know I was clinically depressed, treatment resistant at one point, panic attacks. And every time I start to make some improvements, well, basically every time things start to improve, I start to regress in my efforts to improve. It's like, I just take this deep breath and I think that I don't have to work quite as hard. Now, for the first year and a half, I almost got no symptom relief. I went from being like a 2 on the mood scale on average to like a 3.5. So that was a really long year and a half to just barely improve and still feel very miserable all the time. But something happens when you start getting above a 5. You start to sort of want to let your guard down, because if you're like me and you fought suicidal depression, anxiety, and just debilitating mood disorder, it takes everything out of you just to survive, just to get through the day, just to handle being inside your own head. It truly is something that unless you've been through it, you can never understand just how miserable it is. So when you get to like a 5, there's this part of you that just, you have like no fight left. 5 being, by the way, neutral. I'm not even talking about feeling good. I'm just talking about not feeling shitty. So that you have this party that wants to relax, and quite honestly, you deserve it. I mean, when I finally wasn't horrible for years, I felt like I deserved a little break. And whatever, that'll happen. But when you start going back on everything you did to get out of your mood disorder, and more importantly and more specifically, when you start going back to the life you had prior to your mood disorder in terms of every risky behavior you ever engaged in, or every unhealthy choice you ever made, if that starts becoming normal again, especially to those of us who may not be entirely certain what caused our mood disorder, but we all might know what we did to become more vulnerable towards it, that's when you are disrespecting your mood disorder. And this can happen in really intense and obvious ways, like let's say a recovering alcoholic becomes extremely depressed, gives up alcohol, changes his life, learns his diet, sees a counselor and a therapist, gets better, feels better for a while, and goes, hey, I've been feeling better for a while. Maybe I don't have a problem anymore. Maybe I can go back. And so he does. And what usually happens when a recovering addict or alcoholic decides he's normal again, everything gets worse. His addiction, his disease is waiting for him, as well as his depression and his or her anxiety. Not calling anyone out who relapses, because I'm a relapser. Now that I've said that, I'm also a recovering alcoholic. The same thing applies to people that struggle with depression and anxiety. It really, really does. And it can be more mild. Depends how sensitive you were. It depends what chemical imbalances you've had to work really hard to reroute, what thought patterns and behavior patterns, lifestyle choices, relationship issues, whatever may or may not have put you there. If you don't remember what got you there, you're going to repeat shit, because we're creatures of habit. And the way that manifests itself for me personally, that kind of provoked this video, is that when I'm feeling shitty, I'm like doing everything in my power. But one thing that falls off when I start feeling better, more specifically than anything, is the importance I put on my diet, specifically what I'm putting into my body, whether it be added sugar, inflammatory foods, because I've been learning about things. I've got a genetic mutation called the MTHFR, in which I'm not methylating properly, which can lead to a lot of mood repercussions. These things might seem small, but like most things, even pharmaceutical things, they compound over time. So if you did all this little stuff, from self-care to therapy to possibly pharmaceuticals to whatever, physical self-care, lifestyle change, if you do all this stuff, the hope is the more you do, the sooner you're going to feel better, and then you just keep it all going. Same thing sort of goes. It doesn't usually happen right away. It'll just come about. Mood disorders are slow in response. But when you give them all up, give up the supplements that you knew were going to help balance your hormones, give up the lifestyle that was starting to make you feel better, teaching you about your sleep, give up the relationships, or go back to shitty relationships or bad friends, go back to drugs and alcohol, go back to binge eating and solving your problems that way, go back to whatever it was that was clearly unhealthy, that might have been attributing to your depression or your tendencies for anxiety and what have you. When you go back to them, you might get away with it. And that's what I do. I get away with it for a while. I finally start to feeling better after I have mood crashes, which I just keep having. I can get 2-3 weeks of feeling pretty good even. It blows my mind. And then crash and have suicidal thoughts and feel depressed and anxious for weeks and not know where it came from. Then I'll level out. But what do I do in those times I feel down? I freak out and go back to step one. Like, what do I need to do to get better? So I clean up my diet. I tighten up the lifestyle stuff. I've been staying sober, thank God. I've been working out, thank God. I've been working on sleep, thank God. But mostly I'm talking about diet. That's how one thing that affects me. I give up all these supplements that I researched on end and books I've read. I just forget them all. So I slightly lost my train of thought. But when I talk about respecting your mood disorder, I mean, don't think that you don't have to be accountable to yourself when things start going well. That is a risky time for all of us, and especially me. So now I'm speaking to you, Noah. And I'm going to watch this back, damn you. Keep doing the things you've been doing. I mean, for me, that means minding the supplements I need, watching the inflammation in my body and my gut and how the gut and the brain communicate, being really on top of my hormones at all times. And probably maintaining some form of therapy. I also give up therapy. I'm okay now. I don't need to go see a doctor or a therapist regularly. And then my stinking thinking, first thought, wrong thought, it gets me back. So I think I've said enough. I hope you know this comes from a loving and sincere place, because I want all of us to have a chance at a life worth living. And we've worked too hard. We've worked too hard from the depths of the depression, or you might be currently working too hard with the misery and agony you're living through and you're surviving through, in spite of how much you might want to give up, to then start to feel better and quit doing all the things that got us better. So the message here is keep doing all the things that got you better if you are lucky and blessed enough to be feeling better, like I have been and like I have taken for granted. And it might be very little things. You might be like, it's not that big a deal. But it might compound and your brain might tell you different in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months. So be consistent, be thorough, and respect your mood disorder. Respect it. Don't obsess over it, but respect it, and respect the things you've had to do to get out of it. Keep doing those very same things so you can try to stay out of it. That is the goal. The goal is not just to survive, to go right back in. The goal is to work through it and then get into remission long term. I know we can't guarantee forever, but long term. That's my message. It does, like I said, good luck if you're struggling with something. 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, we can get through it together. I've been in the midst of another mood crash, and it just kicks my ass, humbles me, and it has me rethinking things. And I'm going to have to start identifying these patterns in myself, these destructive patterns, be them small things I do, but they add up, and recommit. Recommit to the fight, recommit to the process. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you in the next video. Take good care of yourself. Respect. Respect your fucking mood disorder.